Hello! Before I jump in again in how Marx investigated the capitalist economy, I have to state two basic things in Marx's philosophy. One is that what distinguishes mainly humans from other animals is the fact that humans make tools. That is how they are able to reproduce their life. While animals may have sharp claws or fast running or other things that help them survive in nature, humans don't have these things but their ability to make tools with which they produce things that are necessary for their life. So for Marx it was not thinking consciousness so much that differentiates humans from animals, but tool making. And then the other thing is that humans are a social species, and human consciousness is a product of the social interaction with nature, making of tools, and through tools making products that are necessary for the human life. So now to capitalist economy. There is no one general economy, but Marx studied the specific economy of the capitalist social order. The capitalist social order is characterized mainly by commodities and the process of exchange. All products have a twofold value. One is use value. They have to be needed, necessary for something. And the other form of value is the exchange value, the value according to which commodities are exchanged. And Marx posited that how exchange value is measured is through an abstract form of labor. But exchanging of various commodities is not always convenient. For example, how do you exchange a cow for a plow, maybe, or two cows for a plow? That is why it was necessary to find such a commodity which will be suitable for exchanging other commodities, and that is money. With the introduction of money, price appears, and although the exchange value corresponds more or less to the price of an object, they are not always the same. In capitalist production, what is also necessary is people who are legally free to sell their labor to the people who own the means of production in order to produce commodities which are afterwards exchanged. The person who sells his labor has to be free in two senses. In one sense, he is free to sell his labor, and in another sense, he has to be free from possession of the means of production. He is not able to produce the products that he needs for his life. So he has to sell his labor. But Marx discovered that labor has also two forms. One is labor, that is the concrete labor used for making a certain product, and in the other sense it is the capacity for labor, and that is the person himself, his muscles, mind, which are used in producing the product. So what happens is the worker who is poor, doesn't have means of production, and he needs to live, he needs the products that are necessary for him to live and to maintain his family, children. And he can get that only if he sells his capacity for labor to the capitalist, and then he gets wages. And these wages have to be enough for him to buy the products that are necessary for reproducing his life. He produces commodities that when, after having been exchanged, get the value that is the value that will pay for the products by means of which his labor power will be restored. That means his wages. So part of the working day, the laborer works for the value of his labor power. But because this labor power is a commodity that belongs to the capitalist, the products that the worker produces are the property of the capitalist, and then he can get this value only after he lets the commodities enter the sphere of exchange, and the value that he gets is a surplus value. This is a value above the value that he has paid to the worker for maintaining his labor power. So it is a surplus value, and this money goes into capital, and the amount of capital is increased. So that is a special characteristic of this commodity, labor power, is that it produces not only the value of itself, but it can produce surplus value, not only by extending the working day, but by technological progress, because when, with the help of machines, more products are produced for the same amount of time, then more use value is produced because more products are produced, but the exchange value stays the same. So this is a special characteristic of this commodity, labor power, because through the consumption of the labor power, and the capitalist does that, it produces more value than the value of itself. So the wage laborer works for the agreed time for which the wage is paid him, but only part of this time is used for producing the value that is his labor power. The rest of the time, the products that he makes, they become commodities, they acquire value only when put in the process of exchange, and the value that is gotten from them is a surplus value. So part of the time it is hidden that part of the time the wage laborer works for the capitalist. This is the exploitation. So this is the hidden characteristics of labor power, that its consumption, that is labor, can produce more value than the value of the labor power, because labor power is the maintaining of the life of the worker. The rest of the time, the rest of the products produced, this is unpaid labor, and the value of the products which are turned into commodities when they get into the sphere of exchange, the value for their exchange is appropriated by the capitalist, and that value is added to capital. It may seem that in slave-owning societies, the slave works the whole day for the slave owner, but what is hidden there is that actually part of the day the work of the slave is for value that will replenish his labor power. So it is not true that the slave works the whole day for the slave owner. While in feudal societies it is strictly distinguished what part of the working day is unpaid labor, because the serf works for his feudal master, and the rest of the working day it is work done only for himself, for reproducing his life. Bye.